When we were at ACC Media Day, one of the things that you kept saying is like, I'm not betting against Tony Bennett. I'm not picking against Tony Bennett. Now that he is leaving, like, what does that do to this Virginia basketball program?
I mean, it's an adjustment. I mean, it's just natural, right? I mean, everyone's still in shock. It's going to take some time to kind of like digest this. I mean, for everyone, because everything changes. I mean, people just think about the basketball aspect of it, but roles on the staff now are changing. You go from Sanchez being an assistant to now he's the head guy. They got to have conversations about that. That's because that's new. He's coming from Charlotte, where it wasn't a ton of success, and he comes back. But Tony handpicked him for a reason, and I have to believe he had some say so in Ron taking over. So, I Tony's a Hall of Fame coach. We've said that. There's still an adjustment period, and it always is when you're following a legendary coach. I think Hubert would have would agree to that. This league has done that. I mean, with Red, Autry, and Syracuse following Boeheim, and with Shire following K. But those guys handpicked those guys for a reason. I think there'll definitely be a drop. It's natural there'll be some things differently. Ron has to do things his way, and he will. They're rumored to be playing a lot faster. We'll see that. They stick to that. Their pace and play will be a little bit different. And I'm not the biggest fan of them changing that because I thought it was so successful no matter what everyone else said. So you can't replace Tony. I mean, what he did for that program, make no mistake about it. They were the winningest program under Tony's watch in the last decade, contrary to popular belief. And he's going to be missed, and he's just a Hall of Fame coach, man. So credit to him, and what this looks like going forward, we'll see.
Tyler and John, I want both of your opinions on this because I kind of go back and forth on it, right? He's leaving 3 weeks before the start of the season and 3 months after signing an extension with the school, right? Like he brought in transfers this offseason under the premise that I'm going to coach you up. TJ Power, I'm going to coach you up. Day-Day Ames, I'm going to coach you up. Jalen Warley, you're transferring in from Florida State, an ACC rival. I'm going to coach you up. They're buying into his vision of the program. And then 3 weeks before it's supposed to start, he says, look, my heart's not in it. I can't do it anymore. Like, I think that those transfers, John, have a valid reason to be pissed off.
I watched the press conference today, actually, because I was super interested to see how he, he looked like a monkey was off his back. He was smiling. He looked like he was stress-free. But you're not going to sit here and tell me the guy with the slowest adjusted tempo in college basketball just made a brass decision just to retire yesterday. So when he talked about it, he said, hey, I wanted to make sure my staff was able to continue. I think that's also part of the reason why he retired at this point in time as well. They don't have time. They can't look at other people, other coaches in school if they want to go a different direction. There's at least a tryout for the guy that he has behind him. But on the other end, UVA is a national brand, somewhat of an ACC kind of powerhouse the last 15 years, 6 regular season titles, 2 tournament titles, a national championship. So he's left the school in good hands as well as he could have. But I definitely think this was a long time coming. He just wanted to make sure that his staff and his guys were handed the right situation and keys, and he let them go.
Tyler?
Yeah, I was just like everybody else, extremely surprised that he retired. But I think with the new college basketball landscape, you're starting to see coaches, the NIL, the portal, kind of weigh on these coaches. And you can't convince me that probably didn't have an impact. And if you take a step back and you look at kind of the moves, bringing in Sanchez, it kind of looks like, maybe he was getting tired of it. Just like John said, it's a long time coming. I didn't really see it like that. It was a surprise, but when I looked at it, you bring in your guy Sanchez, and then you retire about 3 weeks before the season starts. That kind of much guarantees he's going to be the head coach and kind of gives him the reins. It doesn't really give Virginia time to look for an outside coach, which there probably wasn't a lot of hot names or, splash names out there. But, it looks like that could have been one of those situations where he got those transfers and put the program in a good situation for his staff. But you cannot take away for what Tony Bennett has done for UVA. He's been an unbelievable coach, brought him a national championship, and made them a powerhouse in college basketball for years. Regardless of how boring and slow the tempo is, he had a lot of success doing it.
Regardless of how boring and slow it. Okay, I see what you're doing there, Tyler. I see what you're doing. Is Virginia going to be the team that you're picking on all year this year? It was Kentucky and Illinois last season. Have you figured out who your arch nemesis is in the 2024-25 college basketball season?
I don't think it's going to change. I think Kentucky's there to stay. I'm actually, jumping on the Arkansas bandwagon, so I'm going to pull 180.
All right, fellas, this is before we move off Virginia. This is what I want your answer for both these questions. I think everybody, at least when we were at media day, the consensus was kind of you bet on Tony Bennett to figure out whatever he's got to make it work. RC, I think you had them second in your preseason rankings. I know T.O. had him second in his preseason rankings. Does that change now? I want all your opinion on this. Randolph, you go first. Does that change where you have Virginia with Tony Bennett not there? And if it does, how far do you move them down?
I think originally I had it being they were at the top with Carolina and Duke, and I thought those three teams would be different. That changes, yes. Tony Bennett is a Hall of Fame coach. You just don't replace him like you changing clothes. I think they go back. I think they fall back in the group with Wake and Miami and Louisville and Clemson and Pitt, that next group of teams that we think will to have a chance of making a tournament in the next group. I think they do come back to that group. But Tony will be around, and Sanchez has some experience, so I think he left them in the best spot. This is what he wanted. There's no question. The timing and all of this. If he left in March, we know that. I think that's just apparent. We can cut through the chase and just say that he wanted Sanchez taking over. This was the only way he probably could guarantee that Sanchez takes over. Ron has had some head coach success, so I don't think it'll fall off the map. But I do think they come back to the pack, so to speak, and they'll still finish in the top half of the league and be right there to do damage. And we'll see what happens there. Let's see how the pace goes. I mean, we joke about it, but that boring pace, and I know people hate watching it. It was incredibly successful. They won a lot. And I often say to some people, the faster pace you play at times, you're not going to have more horses than Duke and Carolina year in and year out to sustain those paces. So I think UVA will still be solid. They'll be a really good team.
John? Yeah, they're definitely going to be solid. It definitely takes them down in what I feel like maybe they could do during the year. But like RC said, we like to talk mess and make fun of their style of play, but a 50-45 game, you're still in it. I mean, that's how they won, right?
Right.
It's always in it. You pick up the pace. You saw what happened last year when they had to pick up the pace. It got nasty. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, the schemes and their new style of play. I do think they have to change something because in this new age where there's 10, 11 new players on teams sometimes, you got to have a style of play that players want to play with and play for, and the coach that they want to play for. And, in the press conference, we talked about the NIL. He said there needs to be some guardrails, there need to be some changes because he was essentially implying he's getting priced out the market. I mean, there's no way he can keep bringing these guys at the model that he's using. And so Virginia, it's going to be an interesting transition, but they're in a better spot than they could have been at any other time. So I like what they've got going on.
Yeah. Tyler?
Yeah, I think it makes a huge difference. I think this does, in some way, losing a Tony Bennett, it does, in my opinion, kind of, they fall back in the pack. I'm with RC. But also the one thing I will say is Tony Bennett is really good at developing players as well. Yes, he plays at a slow pace, but you've seen guys come through the program that have been there and really excelled after their second or third year of being at Virginia. In the new era of basketball, that's not the way it goes. So you've got to be able to reload every single year, and you're not getting those guys for periods of time to really develop the player. So I think they'll take a step back with that. Yeah,
I would have them from being a team that could compete for top 3 in the ACC to being like, if they make it into the tournament, I think it's probably a pretty good year for Virginia. I'm